As a woman, also coming from Mexico, it has been a challenge in every way. When I studied, I was usually the only woman in my class. You don't see female composers being programmed in big opera houses.
My name is Tarane Pourmaradian, and currently I'm the principal trumpet of the CSUN Orchestra. It took until having a female conductor lead the orchestra for CSUN to put me in a principal position playing a big symphony. Up until now, I had not been in a principal position for a big piece. At least for the little stuff I had played, and principal means first, playing the first part. I had played for little pieces here and there, but Mercedes, the conductor now, was the one that made the director realize, like, oh, you know, maybe you should put her on principal. And I got to show that I'm also capable, just like every other trumpet player. And I always look back to the trumpet player who was here before me, the only one. She said in all 4 years she was here, she was the only girl. And she was always neglected. And when you're neglected, there's not much room for improvement because you don't have support. And we can see now how much support can help. She never had support, so she never improved. Before this, I only worked with one other female composer here. She's the choir director. The choir director here, and Mercedes is the only other female conductor I've ever worked with. It's just these two conductors. I can say in the thousands of pieces that I've played in the time that I've been in band or orchestra, so spanning back to like middle school, I think in total I've done pieces, like 10 pieces by female composers, 4 of which were within the last 2 years.
My name is Diana Circe, and I'm a composer and singer, and I am the composer of Marea Roja. Well, it was devastating to write that piece. The story behind it was that my best friend, she's a singer, and she worked with Tumenpash, that it's an ensemble of 6 female voices, where I was also singing when I was in Mexico, much younger. And then we saw that at the beginning of the 2000s, there were this event of feminicides that were happening in Mexico, and nobody was talking about it. And the death of Nadia Vera, for example, the activist, it was also something that was very hard for us. And we thought, okay, we don't have any funding, we only have the idea, we only have the desire of speaking about what is happening. And the opera series itself, like every 3 hours with 20 minutes, a woman is killed in Mexico and nobody cares. So what are we going to do? I'm a composer, she's a singer, you sing, I'll compose. We will look for options to talk about this and to bring another narrative into the table in the opera world.
Marea Roja is more of a commemoration of women who have been murdered in Mexico in the year 2014, 3 women. The second piece is a retelling of the story of Cinderella. And so we were sort of stuck with the idea of how do we put these 2 pieces together, which was very difficult because one of them is about the objectification and murder of women, and the other one is about the objectification, but the celebration of that objectification of women, right down to the size of her foot in the glass slipper. So I wanted to focus less on the differences and try to figure out how they relate to each other, how these 2 pieces speak to each other. So I wanted to focus on the female. When I started thinking about the female in our culture, it made me think of the times we're living in, where change is about to happen in our world. And when change happens, people get frightened because people don't like change. You either embrace the change or you react against it. And I think that what's been happening is victimization that happens in change. And the first people to get victimized are women, which made me think of the 1920s, which is weird because we're now in the 2020s. But in the 1920s, there was a real surge of creative power that was happening around the world. Berlin was one of the focal points. But in the movie industry here, there was a lot of freedom of expression, and there was a lot of fluid gender expression, and a lot of sexuality on screen. And so when the 30s came, there was a reaction to that kind of freedom here in the United States, and the Hayes Commission was formed. But it was really a reaction against the change in our social structure in the 20s, going into the 1930s. And I find it interesting that we are in 2020, and we're about to enter into that period. And I think as humanity, as human beings, we have the opportunity either to embrace the change and see where it takes us, or react against it and go backwards in time to a place which was much more repressive and dangerous.
When I studied, I was usually the only woman in my class, and I think still like that in most of the concerts and most of, for example, of the opera companies. I do opera, and usually you don't see female composers being programmed in big opera houses. And also nor considered for the programming of the orchestras. And this has been changing with time, as I said before, but I think it's still something that for me was important to say, to express in my music. You know, it's not a coincidence that after the opera was done in 2016, the person who contacted me to do this opera is a female composer from Latin America. It's not a coincidence, I think. It's something also special, and I hope this wouldn't be a theme, but in reality it is.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Today it's a very special day because it's International Women's Day. It was on March 22nd, 1911 in New York. 126 women died in a factory. There was a huge fire. And after that tragic event, people started to, there was more fight to protect women in work. So basically we're going to dedicate this piece to all those women, to all the faculty in the music department that fight for women's rights, and to all those faculty, women faculty in the music department that are role models to all these students here. So I'm very excited to be here in the orchestra tonight. And I'm delighted to be a role model to all these amazing young women here tonight.